So I'm going to start by, have to remember what I'm doing. Start by, I'm going to make a plane to show you how the lattice works. In my front viewport, I'm just going to drag the plane out. I'm going to hit G here on my viewport so you can see that plane a little better. In fact, I'm going to maximize this view and back up a little bit. There we go. And for this, I'm going to turn on edged faces so you can see how this lattice works. The lattice modifier, if I hop over here and apply lattice, so I'm in modify with lattice above my plane, and you can see that what it's done, if I turn it off, is it's taken the edges of the plane and converted them to geometry, like a gate or a mesh type design. And I get some choices with lattice. You can turn these buttons on and off. This is joints only from vertices. These are where the vertices were. You see if I turn it off, there's the vertices. And if I turn it back on, that's what I end up with. I can make struts only, which is the one that I tend to use the most, or both. And down below here, I can change the radius of the struts. Makes good waffle irons. There you go. Or I can change the amount of segments. I can change the amount of sides and actually make these round. By default, it's set to 4, which is square. And I can add smoothing groups to them if I want to. Now, we haven't talked about smoothing groups, but that's where I would set it. The joints, you get the same thing. You can change their shapes. So you get lots of choices. The radiuses can be bigger. You can make some really cool designs using this. And you can increase the segments to make them round if you want to. Now, what good is this? That's the next question, and that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to delete that plane. I'm going to make a new plane here. Oops. Back up. There we go. I'm going to make a new plane in my front viewport. And I'm going to make the segments, I'm going to make more segments going this way on it. I'm going to get down here, we'll maximize this so we can see what's going on. And I'm going to make this an editable poly. Now, what I can do is I can select the vertices here and I can make kind of a design, and what this will end up being, at least for my tank in the near future, is going to be like a tank grill. So kind of a front piece to the tank. There we go. I'm going to grab these pieces here. So I can kind of make this design. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. There we go. Make this one and this one come down. I think that'll work. I don't like this middle piece just being straight, so I think I'm going to raise that up as well. There we go. You can also cut or connect in your own edges, which is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to grab this one, this one, this one, and this one. I'm in edge mode. Select those, and I'm going to go to connect. Remember, connect makes connections between these. So I'm making more edges, and I think, here, let's do this just so you can see how it works. I'm going to grab these guys here, and I'm going to add connect one more time, this time with one connection. Okay, now when I go to add, turn off your subselection, when I go to add lattice, you can see that I've made that design that's now going to be the front grille for my tank. Now, I don't like the joints in here, so I'm going to get rid of the joints. I just don't like the way they look. And I'm going to make the radius a little, whoa, not that big. I'm going to make the radius a little bit bigger. I'm going to give it more sides so that it's a little rounder, although we do want to keep them fairly low poly for our tank. In fact, that's probably a bit overdone. There we go. And now, I'm going to apply an FFD modifier on top of the lattice. And an FFD modifier is a tongue twister. Let's see if I can get this right. It's a freeform deformer, or freeform deform. And what that means is it's kind of like giving little handles to this to bend it like clay. I'm going to drop this little plus down here and go to control points. And what that's going to allow me to do is now I can select these control points here. I'm going to select the top, holding down control and left click dragging, and grab the bottom as well. And watch what happens when I move these guys. I'm just going to bend them back, and I get a bent piece. And now I'm going to grab just the sides, holding down control, left click dragging with the mouse to add to my selection, and I'm going to bend these back. And you can see that I've got this bent piece that I could use as a grill for the front of my tank. That's what I'm going to save this one as, and then I'm going to show you some other things that you can do with it. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Here, we'll fold everything up. I'm going to save this for my tank. There we go. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this guy. Don't need him anymore. Go back to my 4 views. I'm going to show you some other things you can do with this. I'm going to open up, if I can find it, one of the tank pieces we've already made. I have to remember which pieces I have a choice of here. This is the one I'm looking for. Remember this one? This was our turret. I'm going to zoom in here, maximize this viewport. There we go. And one of the things I can do, click on the turret so that it's active. You see it's editable poly. I'm going to go to my edges here, and I'm going to select some of the edges that I've got on this turret. This one here. I'm holding down control and clicking to select these. Those look good. I want the one on the other side here. I'm going to hit, do I want loop or ring? I always forget. Loop. Yeah, loop. Had to guess. And now what I can do is apply the lattice directly to these selections. So with this on, I go to lattice. You see it changed the whole thing into a lattice, which isn't really what we want. It looks like a Lincoln Logs or something. But this little check mark here under lattice, see, I can now apply it just to those selections. And if I clean this up and I make it only struts, I'm going to make the radius really small. So right there. It's a little big. There we go. And I'm going to add a few more. Make them round. There we go. And I've added kind of a trim piece. I'll render this so you can see it. I've added these trim pieces right here to the tank. And the nice thing about this is you can really get in here and decorate it. So I went back down to editable poly. I'll show end results so that I can see it. And now if I click on more of these edges, you'll see it's applying the lattice as I click on them. That's because lattice is at the top of the stack. So it's always active. This is something we haven't done before yet. You got to make sure you don't click through to the bottom. You see I'm accidentally selecting a few. I'm holding down Alt and left dragging to deselect these. I didn't want those. I'm going to zoom in here. There we go. And go back to select. I want that one. Now that's going to mess up my tank. How about this one? There we go. And I can hit loop again and see it will go all the way around and kind of follow that piece all the way around. Now it's actually messing up the bottom of my tank right now. I've got a little bit of a polygon issue, but we can't see the bottom anyways. And I think actually, even though after I said I didn't like the way it looks, I think I need to put some joints in here. Both. I want that a little smaller, and these obviously have to be real tiny, and we'll add a few more segments. Now what I've got is that. And you'll see that I've added detail to parts of the tank that way. That would be really hard to get in there and add otherwise. Now the only thing you got to be careful with is the polygon count. Don't go crazy. We're not too concerned about the polygon count right now, but don't go crazy with it, or you're going to be sorry, because it's going to be hard to clean up later if you go too crazy. So that's the lattice modifier with editable poly on top of it on an existing object using the edges. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save that guy. And I'm going to reset this. And I'll show you one other thing you can do. I'm going to make a cylinder here. And we're going to show our edges here. And what I'm going to do is, I have to think about it for a second. Actually, I'm just going to hop over to cylinder, make this an editable poly. I'm not going to do anything except right-click on the cylinder and hit clone. And this is going to be called cylinder 02. It's going to be a copy. Now there's actually two cylinders here in the same space. See? Two of them. That's what we want. We're going to select one, editable poly, and I'm going to apply a lattice on top. And what we're going to get is we're going to get that interior piece left there. So it's going to, once I clean this all up, it's going to look like it's like a water tank or something along those lines. I think I'm going to make it struts only. And now you'll see when I render this, I've got that framework built into my cylinder, and so I can make this look like something that might fit on the tank, and it's got some sort of structure attached to it. So that's the other thing you can use it for. So don't forget about, here, we'll even apply an FFD on this as we move out. I'm going to collapse this. I'm going to attach that other piece to it. So now they're both attached, I believe, yep. And I'm going to apply an FFD on it. This time I'll apply a cylindrical FFD. This one works exactly the same. Get a hold of the control points. I'll grab the middle. I'm going to scale them down. And you can see how we can have fun modeling with this type of modifier. So that's what I ended up with after all that. And so remember FFD and the lattice modifier, two very helpful ones for this project.